Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Shaman Talk with Tegan. Tarot with Tegan is where you'll find me on Instagram and Facebook, and now TikTok. We'll see how long that lasts, but if you're on there, go ahead and go and find me. Okay, so I have another solo episode today for spooky season. That's why I'm wearing all my finest to tell you this creepy story. So I know I said back when I did my first solo podcast that I wanted to do like local history stuff. And this isn't quite local, but most people have probably heard of it. So this story takes place in Galena, Illinois. If you're unfamiliar, it's in the northern half of Illinois, but way to the west, like literally to the Mississippi River. So it's a cute, quaint little town. It's like stepping back into time almost. One of those little towns you step through and you're like, whoa, am I back in the 1800s? It's cute, has lots of bed and breakfasts, long weekend type deal. So when I was there, I took like a ghost tour, of course, because that's just what I do. But first, let's get back to Galena itself, and I'll give you just a little bit of background, a little bit of history in case you have no idea. So, Galena was founded in 1826, and because of the proximity to the Mississippi River, it quickly became a big port city, and it was at one point the richest city in Illinois because of that. And they actually got rich off of lead. There was a huge like mine there, I guess, or nearby. And at one point, I want to make sure I quote this correctly, they were the lead mining capital of the world by 1928. I don't know what to make of that, honestly, but whatever, it's fine. Made lots of money, people out there. So, in Galena, part of the draw on the respect of like ghost tour stuff, like besides it being very old, is that there is a building there that was built when Galena was founded in 1826, and it was built by John Dowling, and it's known now as the Dowling House. So it's this old brick structure, 2 stories, and it's also supposedly the oldest stone structure in Illinois that's like still standing today. So when you go there, you can take either, at least when I went, this is a couple of years ago now, but when I went, it was either you take like a walking tour where you walk around Galena in different places and hear the ghost stories and history, or you did the Dowling House itself, and there were 2 separate things. So, when John Dowling built the house in 1826, when Galena was founded, the bottom part of it was like for fur traders and stuff, it was like a trading post. And then above there is where his family lived. So just a little bit of context for when I get to my personal haunted story. And the usual stuff. People claim to see spirits, see things, hear things, whatever. You always take things with a grain of salt. Even someone like me who knows ghosts exist and stuff, like, you never know, right? So what happened was I went on this tour, and first of all, one of the stops was like the old jail in town. So the old jail was built in 1878, and it's a 4-story structure. And it was really cool to see because now it's like a fancy inn, and that is a little above my like pay grade to be able to stay there. But you can still see it from the outside. And what's wild to me, and I know this was the case pretty much everywhere back in like the 1800s, early 1900s, but the first 2 stories of this building is where the sheriff and his family lived. And then right above them on the 3rd story was where they housed the men who were in jail, which they could only fit like 12 of them in there. And then on the 4th floor was like the women's jail. Just wild to me that you just be sitting there eating breakfast and there's just like people in jail above you. Anywho, it's interesting though because it's called the Jail Hill Inn now, and the guy who like bought it and took it over, I was reading on their website, he's won all kinds of like awards and stuff because he's kept the building, like the structure is still there. Like when you walk in, supposedly you can tell that it was still a jail, and like he preserved a lot of stuff really well. So I'd love to go there one day, like inside. And he also said he has a whole room just dedicated to the things that they found while renovating. So it's like, how could that not be haunted in some way? It has to be, right? So maybe I can make a video in the future when I go and stay there one day. Okay, so that's part of the tour. Another part of the tour is you go to what's called the DeSoto Hotel, and it's super old. And the hotel itself, inside, you look around, you feel like you're almost like in another time and like another dimension. It's just very interesting. They're super old, and it's really cool. But the funny part of the tour was that you go downstairs and there's like a bunch of dining down there. And so you're looking around at all these like tables, and then you look at a wall and there's literally just a hole in the wall in this entire like structure itself. And it's so funny because I feel like this like just slightly unhinged, but in the best way possible. Because what this hole is so many people used to see or still do see a woman in black in that exact spot. And so I love when like places lean into their lore and the ghost stories, because they hear it so often that they put a hole in the wall so that she could pass through easier. I'm just like, this is hilarious and amazing. I unfortunately did not catch a picture of her, but I took a picture of the hole in the wall, and the plaque above it reads exactly this: hidden since 1880s and only discovered in July 2011, this doorway marks the spot where the elusive lady in black has always been reported to disappear. So it's very sweet of them to make that so she could go there easier, you know? Okay, so the tour overall was super fun. And then at the end of the night, we were walking back to where we meet. And where you meet for these tours is next to the Dowling House, which is its own separate thing. But my tour guide looks at us. He's like, you guys are my last tour tonight. He's like, and I'm locking up. It's like, does anybody want to go in the house, the Dowling House? And of course, we're all like, yeah, let's go. So we got to go in the Dowling House. And so you'll see when I post pictures on the bottom floor, they tried to keep it as realistic as possible. And like, this place apparently sat abandoned from like the mid 19, I want to say in like the 1930s or 40s until the 1970s when someone bought it and restored it. But the bottom part is like what it would have looked like for the fur trade. And it's interesting because I took a couple of pictures down there. And then I didn't notice until I got home the next day. I looked through the pictures and I found something. Found something on the pictures. And I, at that point, had never done that before. I've always liked spooky places, spooky things, always taking pictures, never saw anything. And then I zoomed in on one of the pictures, and it almost looks like a little flame or something, or like an orb, like a ball of light is just looks like it's sitting in the rocking chair. And I know some of you might look at it and go, oh, well, it looks like a pilot light, and like for the thing behind it, the fireplace. But the fireplace was original, and that was part of the whole tour, was that's the original fireplace. And back in the 1820s, they did not have pilot lights. So I know for a fact that that was not there before. And I also had a picture before that one, and that wasn't there. Also in the picture, you can see like sometimes there's those green orbs from like the lights from above. That's over down in the corner. And this thing's up in the middle of the picture. So I was like over the moon about that. And I was like, this is so cool. I caught something on camera for the first time ever. Okay, so we go from the bottom level. And at this point, I didn't know I had the orb picture. And we all walk upstairs to where the family would have lived. And so our tour guide is like, okay, when I give these tours, when I give my spiel up here, he's like, I turn on this like ghost box. And it's basically, if you know anything about ghost hunting and Ovilus, where like random words will just get shot out, like spit out. And he's like, I keep it right here next to me and I tell these stories, and sometimes words come out. So he's telling his story and all these words start coming up like nonstop. It keeps interrupting him. You can tell he's almost a little bit annoyed by it because it's happening so much. But the problem was it kept getting like darker and darker. It kept saying like malevolent, prey, evil, all this stuff. And that's when all of us in the group kind of started looking at each other like, what the heck? And this, for reference, was before I did like my shamanic training and really kind of like knew some stuff. And so I was kind of freaked out just like everybody else was. So at one point, you can tell the tour guide is a little freaked out too, because he stops and he's like, actually, on second thought, I might actually turn this off. And then he like turns it off. Then he goes back to giving his spiel about everything. And I kid you not, like 10 seconds later, boom, all the lights are off. And once again, we're all just left staring at each other, like with the filtered in light from outside, like, what is happening? Like, this is wild. And the tour guide is just standing there with his mouth open, just staring at us. Like, he does not know what to do. And before anyone listening goes, oh, it's all part of the thing, trust me, it's not. Even before my shamanic journey and things, I always was able to read energies and people's intentions. And I could tell he was completely caught off guard. And I actually felt kind of bad for him, because I actually used to be a tour guide in downtown Denver for a haunted pub crawl. And let me tell you, when unexpected things like that happen, or even dealing, like I had to deal with like outside world stuff sometimes, it was like, it throws you off. It throws off your whole game. And it's like, it's almost annoying a little bit. So the point of that was, I could tell that was not part of the plan, right? So the lights are off. We're all just staring at each other in silence. And he is like, I don't understand. He's like, there's one light switch that turns on all the lights in here, because it's not a huge house. He's like, and it's downstairs. He's like, everybody's up here. He's like, I locked the door behind us. I don't understand. And he kept saying that. So finally, one of the other guys that was on the tour was like, if you want, like, I'll go down there with you. I'll use my phone flashlight and we can go turn it back on. And so then he's like, oh, yeah, let's do that. And so the guys walk down and turn the lights back on. But the tour ended quickly after that, I will say. It was still cool and it was still awesome to go in there. But I'd say that's one of the crazier, like, things that have happened to me while on a tour like that. Because almost anywhere I go, I'm like, where's the ghost tour? Sign me up. And that's so far one of the crazier things that have happened. So is the Dowling House haunted? I would say yeah, because that was pretty crazy. Not as crazy or as intense as my last story about the more local stuff, but still very fun, still very interesting. So yeah, if you head out that way ever, I would say do the Dowling House and see what you feel, see what you sense. As always with these videos and things like that, I'm just trying to start like a conversation. I want to hear what you have seen. If you've been out that way and been on that tour, let me know if you have any experiences or if you have any pictures even. I love to see them. And I hope everyone has a happy Halloween. And my next episode here will be back to normal with a guest and talking about really cool stuff. All right. See you guys later.